stay in Ada or talk about Ada, where young lady working in a government office is sued the Controller and Accountant General's Department for deducting over the past 4 months some 20 cedis from her salary. Our reporter Benjamin Tete was in court today and has joined me over the telephone with some detail. Hello, Benjamin.
Hello, good afternoon, Coco.
Good afternoon. What happened?
Well, the decision today about the case, as you rightly mentioned, is that the judge at the magistrate court, His Lordship Jonathan Avugu, asked the Ada East District Education Welfare Office to pay monies deducted or wrongfully deducted from the lady's account. The lady in question is Millicent Agbevivi. She took them to court over the deductions. And basically her case, by the Constitution of Ghana, everyone has a freedom to belong to any group. I mean, in the same way, it reverses to mean that anyone can decide to opt out of any group, and joining a group must be voluntary. She didn't understand how come, as a teacher in the district, if the district education office, social welfare office would decide to do any deductions to a group that she doesn't belong to. First of all, she hasn't joined the group. She hasn't given her consent for joining the group. So she was surprised when sometime late last year she realized that there were deductions. And this is not the deductions for NAT, or the national body, which is the Ghana National Association of Teachers, but this is for the district social welfare for under the education directorate. So she opposed to it. She took it to court late last year. Today the case was heard, and the judge has ruled that indeed those deductions must be referred, must be stopped first of all, and secondly, that monies that they had deducted be refunded to her. Of course, Millicent still wasn't quite happy with some things that happened in court. First of all, for the fact that the judge's decision was that the case, the deductions were not illegal. And she says, if it is not illegal, then what is it then? For the fact that she had not consented, in her own words, for someone to go into my account to make deductions. Okay, so in other words, referring to the fact that they could tap her account in the bank and make those deductions without her consent. That alone was illegal. But then the judge said, well, in itself wasn't illegal. But still, he went ahead anyway to ask that the payments be refunded to her. He also asked that some cost, more like not a cost awarded to the lady, and that the judge again said that those monies deducted or any expense she made in following the case in court was her own bearing, and that she should take care of those ones. But
so no damages were awarded?
No damages were awarded.
How does Millicent feel about that?
She wasn't happy, obviously. She said that that sounded quite unfair. But again, she in her way said that in the judge's own wisdom. I actually got the voice. I don't know if the voice was ready. We would have played it for listeners to hear her own voice. But maybe as and when it's ready. But in her own words, she was not quite happy. More especially some other incident that happened after the ruling. She came out of the court, and several of the district education workers gathered, and they were more like, some started, I think, throwing some invectives against her. She wasn't happy with that, which she even quoted one as saying that you are here with us in the district and we will show you, or you will see what we'll do to you, you know, or we'll see where this
So what does she plan to do in that respect?
Well, thankfully, I think since it happened in the court premises, the judge's attention was drawn to it. So the judge, Judge Jonathan Avugu, called them back and tried to intervene somehow. And so because of that, he cautioned them against making those utterances, referring that teachers can't come to court and come and act in any way.
But so does she feel her life is in danger because of the ruling?
Well, she told me she's now going to decide what else to do, but I don't think immediately she seems to have any plan, let's say, like taking any further action. But for now, the judge again has asked that from now to sometime in February, he's giving the education office. And in fact, the education director himself wrote to the court some way to try to intervene. So he's giving the education office and the social welfare office this opportunity from now to February to resolve any differences, to do the payments, and then they'll come back to the court to report.
Was she assured any job security?
She didn't talk about anything relating to her security. For now, it was that minor incident at the court that.
But does she think she still has a job as a teacher in the district?
Certainly, she says she has a job and she will still continue. She's still a teacher. She still belongs to the national body, which is the Ghana National Association of Teachers. She still works under the district directorate office. Her only concern, and as a citizen upheld by the Constitution, is the fact that she felt that the deduction was wrong and she took action to correct it.
Benjamin, thanks for this update. Benjamin Tete joined us from Ada. Well, now we can talk about our weather patterns and how these patterns have changed over, or we perceive them as having changed over the past few years. I'm joined over the telephone by Reverend Dr. Steve Nyakote Kwao. He is with the Meteorological Agency. Thanks for joining us here, Doc.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Now, we seem to be experiencing a lot of rain now. What's been the reading from the agency as to why we're experiencing this?
In fact, during the weekend, we had a slight improvement, in the atmospheric, conditions. We had a lot of moisture influx into the southern parts of the country, which actually penetrated far inland to the forest and mountainous areas of the Volta, Eastern Ashanti, the Bronx, and even parts of the northern sector, in fact, which shows an extension to which, the improvement, went. For the coastal areas, for instance, we had the storm, affecting the eastern coast, and then as far back as Axim area, that is 34.6, and then we have Akachi also reporting 29.8.
How normal is this?
Yeah, it's normal. It's normal because once you have the high pressure system, which is responsible for the Harmattan condition retreating, or the central value, weakening, you have the other features also taking over. That is the low pressure systems. And over Europe, we had a series of low pressure systems over the southern parts of Spain and Portugal, and that interacted with the pressure systems over the sub-region, and that sucked in a lot of, moisture to give the deposits that we experienced over the weekend.
But Doc, one would imagine that the rainy period was April, May.
Yeah, April, May, but climatologically, in February, you have the western region picking up. That is February 28th. Every year, that is what should be. But the atmosphere, it's very dynamic. It changes. You can have the parameters changing, from time to time. If we are in the Harmattan conditions, it doesn't mean there isn't any moisture, in the atmosphere. When you move up to about 12,000 meters above sea level, that's very high up into the atmosphere, you have certain features that bring in moisture from some of the water bodies. And this is sustained over a period over the country. And with low temperatures over the region, especially at dawn, and then at night you have some of these moisture being collected within the corridor of what we call a low pressure area. That is an area where you find a lot of clouds, sudden rumblings and lightning flashes, and heavy rains. So once this corridor, lowers in latitude, it affects, the country, and that's exactly what we had. Coupled with that is the breakdown of the high pressure system which has been persistent over the country.
So what does this mean? An end to the Hamilton season?
No, we're not out of the Hamilton season yet. In fact, we're looking at the end of February. The end of February. Even after the rains, the high pressure system has taken over again and is spreading horizontally across the Sahara Desert. And you know the Sahara Desert is mainly sandy. So once the winds are emanating from the center of this high pressure system, it will continue to drive in some of the dust particles which will be sustained over the region, during the period. However, we still have some of the low pressure systems, along the southern sector of the country, and this will attract a lot of clouds formation and development. So we will continue to have occasional slight to moderate, rain or intermittent rain along the coastal belt, and then the areas where we have forest and then mountains. In fact, these are the areas where we'll continue to have such slight to moderate deposit.
Doc, let's try and explain this slight to moderate so that the ordinary person can understand. What kind of what would be the severity of the slight to moderate rain so harsh that it can flood?
Okay, when you get out of your room, where you could experience that at least something is falling upon your head, where you could reasonably get wet, but not soaked. That's what we term as slide. When we enter into the moderate to heavy, that's where it becomes very windy and maybe you could be soaked completely when you're out of any shelter. So that's the.
But the rains we have seen in the past few days, the kind that can flood, the kind that can reach knee level, the kind that can actually drench you if you walk through it. How sure are we that the future would indeed be slight to moderate, the very near future, that is?
Yeah, in the very near future, that is where we'll be expecting widespread heavy thunderstorms and lightnings. And at that time, we would have gotten, into the actual major rainy season for the southern sector. The country is divided into three zones. We have the coastal belt, we have the mid portions of the country, and the northern sector. Between the very months you mentioned earlier, that is where we have the onset of the major rainy season over the southern parts of the country. And there you have clouds building up. You look at the atmosphere and it's cloudy everywhere.
But Doc, the concern for many is the fact that our weather patterns may have been affected by changing climate. Is that what you see from your screens at the agency?
The climate has been affected over the period, and that's what's also giving rise to, because we have industries, springing up here and there, giving out what we call carbon dioxide. We have what we call nitrous oxide. We have also maintained these very big words. I hope not disturbing the ears of the listeners, but it's very important I mention some of these things because of the question you posed. We have the hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluorides, and so all these are in the atmosphere, and when the sun emits its radiation, it's incident upon the Earth's surface 100%, even though we have absorption.
So Rev, yes. for the sake of time, let's get to the question I asked.
Okay.
Are these changes in the climate affecting our weather patterns here in Ghana?
Yes, it is. It is affecting because you can have sea rise, you can have low pressure systems moving over the region at the time without any influence of a high pressure system, which can actually give rise to dryness of calm atmosphere. So once we have such changes in the atmospheric composition, you have most of these taking place. We had years when we did not experience any heavy rainstorm, and we had other years when throughout there wasn't any break at all in either the major rainy season or the minor rainy season. It merged up, especially the year 2000. There was no break at all. Just about 2 days, we have some calm in the atmosphere. We had the major rainy season merging with the minor. So we could have some of these fluctuations in the weather passing over the country as a result of this global warming, we say, which is taking place.
Doc, I'm afraid we'll have to leave our conversation. Dr. Steve Nyakote is with the Meteorological Agency here in Ghana. Now let's talk about the Electoral Commission and the fact that Director of Communications with the Commission, Christian Owusu-Pare, has defended the decision by the Electoral Commission as far as the composition of the Committee on Electoral Forms is concerned. According to him, all of these political parties who are objecting to the composition now did not object at the Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting when the EC announced its intention for the composition of the Committee on Electoral Reforms. I spoke with him earlier on News Desk.
Composed of representatives from the Electoral Commission, political parties, and civil society groups. So the arrangement was that the commission will be represented by 3 people. Political parties will have 4 representatives, and civil society will have 3 representatives on the committee. On the basis of that, the political parties, the governing party was asked to bring 1 representative. The main opposition party was also asked to bring 1 representative, and the rest of the minority parties were asked to bring 2 representatives to the committee.
Now, Christian, that's where the problem is. The question then is, why would you clump up the others or put the others together and give them a slot?
My sister, there are 23 registered political parties in this country. You want to have 1 representative from every political party on the committee. And as the PPP itself did, in nominating 2 people to the committee. Even if we have to accept 1, that would be 23 for political parties. And then there will be civil society, there will be the Electoral Commission. Let me say that if we talk about reforms, we're not just talking about political parties. We're talking about the interests of everybody who is a voter in this country. So all other groups, apart from political parties, also need to be represented. And that is why we say civil society must have representation. Indeed, at some other forum, I was asked whether we're taking care of the Christian Council, whether we're taking care of Peace Council and several other bodies. My explanation then was that, well, these are groups that belong to one of the 3 civil societies that we have given representation, so they were sufficiently represented. Indeed, there are several other groups that could have asked for representation on the committee.
But Christian, there's no denying.
Hello.
Right.
But we have to find a committee that is workable. The size must not be unwieldy, so that at least they can have some meaningful discussion and arrive at some conclusions. And that is why we said a committee of 10 will be okay for the electoral reform.
Which is no problem, and that's a point well made. Now, the Progressive People's Party, I'm happy about this. And so if we had to make a representation of political parties on this 10-member committee, why didn't all the political parties just come together and bring their 4 representatives instead of single out the NDC, the NPP, and the rest? That is the contention for the PPP.
I do not think that is discriminatory and that violates any rule at all. No, I do not think it is discriminatory. I was expecting that rather the PPP at the party level, when we said they should meet and nominate 2 people, it would have made its voice heard at the party level, so that probably they could have pushed for their representatives to be nominated to the committee.
Kofi?
Yes.
So you heard Christian. What do you have to say?
Well, I've understood everything that Mr. Osipari has said. The point that we want to stress is that in determining the parties that sit on the 4 seats that were available for political parties, the Electoral Commission, in the exercise of that discretion, should have referred to the political parties law so that we have a definition of what a political party is. That definition does not include the party that governs. That definition does not include the party that has the second largest seat in parliament. That definition does not include who is the biggest opposition party in Ghana. So if you use these selection criteria and select NPP and NDC to go and have majority or half of the seats that were available to political parties, that is not fair.
But
So
Kofi,
yes.
like Christian explained, really, what's wrong with that? If the NDC MPP have been given slots, and the remaining 21 or so are asked to bring 2 representatives, why wouldn't you just meet and bring your representation? What's wrong with that?
There is everything wrong with that. You see, because we have to be treated as political parties on equal footing as long as the Electoral Commission keeps us on its register.
But the committee cannot take each and every political party.
And that is why in sharing the 4 seats for 23 political parties, there is a more proportionate manner in which the seats could have been distributed among the political parties. If you single out NDC because of what? They are in government. You single out NPP because of what? Because they have their largest political party or the
because they are the biggest opposition party,
yes,
perhaps.
The Electoral Commission, I should say, should be the last institution of state to be using unconstitutional criteria for allowing political parties participation in programs such as this. Over the years, we've had issues like political parties with representation in parliament. We've had issues like political parties that did well in the last election. A political party is a political party.
But then again, Kofi,
political party's law.
You admit that it's using its discretionary powers.
Yes, but if you have the Electoral Commission of Ghana that is supposed to be the referee of political party activities, accepting and subscribing to these unconstitutional criteria for recognizing political parties, it is very disturbing and worrying.
So now you want to go to court?
Yes, we believe that in this particular instance, the 4 seats that the Commission on its own independently decided that they would give to the political parties were not evenly and fairly.
So when are you doing that?
Well, hopefully by Friday we should be able to file the application.
I see. We'll stay on the subject of elections, and Convention People's Party spokesperson on youth and sports, James Kwabena Bonfet Jr., is urging political parties to take keen interest in the voter exhibition exercise by the Electoral Commission. He spoke on the AM show earlier today.
It's erroneous for anybody to create the impression that somebody was wrongly registered. You mean it's not because the person was registered with NHIS?
Yes.
It's not correct. We did in Ghana, registrations are done according to the CI 72, which came to replace, I think, CI 46, right? In CI 72, the documents that you can produce to accept, to be accepted to register include national health insurance cards. It was after the registration in 2012 that an application at the Supreme Court that he holds a view that of the documents that should be tendered to prove nationality, national health insurance should not be a part of that.
Very good.
And the Supreme Court accepted that.
Very good.
Anything done prior to this determination by the Supreme Court
Was lawful.
was lawful.
Anyway.
Please, Laws don't work in retrospect. And you know that too well, that it does not work in retrospect. The judgment of the Supreme Court on the National Health Insurance card does not take effect in retrospect. We are going to have assembly elections. What register are we going to use?
Same register.
You see, and that's why I'm saying that we should be careful, especially political actors. And we go to IPAC. We sit there. We have challenges with our electoral process. We have challenges with our register. Some were even raised by the Electoral Commission itself. Political parties, especially in this last registration exercise, when the limited registration was done, was there not an exhibition of the register?
There was.
The names that was compiled? Were we not having the opportunity to challenge any names that were in there before a final register has not been presented yet?
Well, on the same program, National Nasara coordinator for the New Patriotic Party, Abdullahi Kamal Dean, believes the Electoral Commission has to do more to reach the voters' register of ghost names.
Go to the Supreme Court. To get the Supreme Court, tell us that the law in CI 72, which says that you can use NHIS card to register as a voter, is a bad law.
Sure, that one.
Getting the Supreme Court.
Everybody agrees.
Absolutely, and getting the Supreme Court to make a declaration that no, we are not supposed to use NHIS card to register because at the end of the day we may not be able to get a credible register.
There may have been people who registered.
Absolutely, and we are told several thousands or millions of people, rather I should say, use the NHIS card to register. So it means that wrongly we got people registered with the NHIS card.
That's a probability.
Don't you
That's just a probability.
No.
It's not a fact.
You think it's a fact.
Yeah, no,
it's a fact that people
it's
use.
not a fact.
No,
that's a probability.
It is a fact that
could have been or may not have been.
NHIS card
because I know that as far as the registration process is concerned,
it was not better.
And for all that we've all experienced, you have your agents there, and your agents would either raise questions or how do you call it? They'll raise concerns, and you have to fill their processes.
No, I'm talking pre the declaration by the Supreme Court.
No, I know.
Okay,
we're talking about registration.
Now,
and once you are talking about registration.
And the register as we have it now, over 14 million people on that register, we are told. Or close to 14 million.
You don't think 14 million are supposed to be on the register?
Completely. 56% of the population of Ghana
what's your estimate?
The register?
What's your estimate?
56%? Take Kenya, for example. What's the population of Kenya? Okay,
but every population
what's the percentage of
and
voters
the dynamics of the demographics is different.
Absolutely.
You may have old people, you may have a certain
this particular discourse needs a lot of facts and figures on this to buttress your point.
All right.
Now,
let's talk about the Bolgatanga Senior High School now. Now, the school reopened Monday, January 26, 2015. You recall that Bolgatanga Senior High School was closed down sometime last year after the death of a student, Emmanuel Ba, which led to some disturbances in the school. Let's find out the atmosphere in the school after reopening. Stephen Awasnab, the senior housemaster of the Bolgatanga Senior High School, and he's joined me over the telephone. Hello, Stephen.
Yeah, madam, please.
Thanks for joining us here, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
How is school today, or since reopening?
Well, the school, we reopened yesterday, and students are all over the place registering, going through the process of registration.
Now, we recall that last year after the death of Emmanuel, some disturbances were recorded in the school. What is in place now, or what are the measures in place now to ensure security and safety of these students and housemasters as well?
Well, in the first place, there is a procedure by which they can come to the school campus. First, they have to go and pay 85 cedis at the post office and collect money order before they come to the school. They will come. There is a registration desk, department by department. They will have to pay the 85 cedis to the account department and collect a receipt, and then they will use the receipt to go and register. After register, they sign a bond immediately to be of good behavior before they are allowed into the the dormitories where they are searched by the housemasters and mistresses before they are ushered into the dormitories.
But what is the general feeling amongst these students you are letting back on campus?
Yeah, they are so remorseful, and some are admitting that they were being misled by a few of their colleagues, and they feel sorry for it. But we can't take things for granted. We have alerted the police, and they are also coming during the night to do snap patrols on campus.
But prior to the closure of the school, there was a case pending as far as investigating the death of Emmanuel is concerned. What developments have we made in that regard?
Oh, yeah, there was a committee set by the Regional Director of Education to investigate. The committee completed its work, and before then there was an autopsy on the body, and everything came out clear that the boy died a natural death, and he died out of his own social life behavior, and everybody, it became crystal clear that it was a clear fabrication that the student, nobody beat or assaulted the student during his death, and now the committee which was said by Regional Director came to the same conclusion, and so far that is it.
But what was identified as the cause of death?
Well, they said that he had liver cirrhosis. He had liver cirrhosis. He had the cirrhosis of the kidney was destroyed. He had an enlarged heart, and he had a tumor in his trachea. Just to mention a few, there are so many complications.
I see. Stephen, we'll be here and we wish you all the best. Stephen Awasnab is a senior housemaster with the Bolgatanga Senior High School, which is just reopened after disturbances were recorded in the school last year in December after the death of one of the students, Emmanuel Bauer. You're still here on News Today. There's more to come. Don't go away. Thanks for your company. Still here on News Today. Now, Executive Director of the Integrated Development and Empowerment Center, Samuel Agboche, says the supply of power should not only be seen from an economic perspective, but also from a human rights angle. He spoke with me earlier on News Desk, giving us deliberations continue on having greater private sector participation in the power supply chain.
It's a very serious human rights dimension. And then that is what we are interested in highlighting. Until some of those problems are looked at from the human rights point of view, we will continue to underplay the severity of the problem. So I would prefer that as a country, we begin to look at ECG and its problems, or the doomsaw problems from a human rights point of view. As well.
How would that change the story if we began to look at it from a human rights point of view?
For example, at a hospital, in the middle of operation, somebody's life is at stake. The person has the right to life. The person has the right to quality health care. And there's no power to provide that quality health care. What happened to the person's health care?
But then it boils down to tackling the core problem of power supply here in the country.
Yes.
Now, you've been a part of discussions about this, and what have you found as being the core problem of power supply here in Ghana?
Well, there are two issues that came up during our discussion with the Power Ministry, for that matter, the committee working on the private participation of in the ECG. The problem with generation capacity is a problem. There's another problem also with the supply of electricity, which is in the area of the ECG. You know, the generation of power, we are being told that we generate around 2,900, thereabout, and our consumption capacity is around 8,009 to 2,000, thereabout. That's what we've been told. And recently we've been told that there was a drop of 500 megawatt because of the drop in the water level of Akosombo. So the question is that if only we are being able to generate that 2,900 capacity, and then there's just a drop of 500 megawatts, and our consumption is around 1,009 and 2,000.
So what? So then the question is, why do we still have?
Why do we still have
the situation we
exactly.
have now? But what were the problems that this discussion identified as reason, in spite of that, we still have what we see now?
This discussion was mainly on ECG and how efficient ECG can be made to be able to, you know, during the course of power supply, there are losses that is made by ECG. And under the MCC, the Millennium Challenge account, that some money is coming. That is a compared to
sometime July or
yes, thereabout. It's supposed to be used to revamp the energy sector. But the issue is that with the current situation of ECG, if that money is pumped into ECG, it will be like fetching a cup of water.
Or the Ministry of Transport is expected to announce a new board for the Metro Mass Transit Limited sometime this week. Now, this means that the company will now be able to procure its 100 buses and intends to add on to its fleet of buses. The absence of a board stalled the purchase of these buses. The old board was dissolved by President John Dramani Mahama on January 15, 2015, following a demonstration by workers of the company against the former board chair and deputy managing director. Aggrieved workers agitated over missing buses of the company, which they suspected some board members and those in management had conspired to rob from the company. Deputy Transport Minister Joyce Abba Mokhtari said the consultations are currently ongoing to reconstitute a new board for the company. Well, now, from the Metro Mass Transit, now consumers of electricity have been experiencing load shedding over the last few months, and subsequent broadcasts will tell you what's happened with the load shedding timetable. But that's it for me for now, before I go a quick look again at our top stories. Head of Public Affairs at the Electoral Commission, Christian Owusu-Parry, says political parties had no objections to the composition of the Committee on Electoral Reforms at the Inter-Party Advisory Committee level. Thanks for your company. Yeah. My name is Kimini Nyomani. I'm on a fine news on myjoyonline.com. Bye-bye.